Welcome to See You at the Table, where stories meet grace. Here we gather, not just to speak, but to listen. If you want to witness how God brings people together from all around the world through powerful testimonies, tune in and see you at the table. Here's today's host.
All right, here we are. See you at the table again. We got a really fun guest today, a guy that I got to know actually traveling to Alaska a couple of years ago. This is Drew Sin. How's it going, Drew?
Good, thanks, man. Thank you for having me here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And Drew is our new head coach of men's soccer.
Correct, yes.
But you've been with the soccer program for how many years?
In total, as an athlete, I played from 2010 to 2013, and then I came back as a coach from 2019 until now. So I think math-wise, stepping into my seventh season, which is quite crazy.
That's awesome.
Just flown by.
Yeah, and so can't get rid of you.
No, not yet.
But yeah, so thankful that you're here. You also recently got your PhD, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so what's that in?
So the PhD itself is in management and leadership with a specialization in cyber technology management, which is quite a mouthful. But my dissertation itself is on the leadership side of things. So what I ended up studying was the relationship between servant leadership and winning in collegiate men's soccer.
Well, that's cool.
And then the impact of a head coach's strength of faith on that relationship, which is pretty cool.
Man, I'd love to read it. Yeah,
I've got copies, man.
Yeah, I need to get you got a PDF or something. I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounded like an old man right there.
I will say it's quite
Send me an email.
130 pages long.
Yeah,
A lot to work through, but I think it's quite cool the way it finished up.
it's a process, isn't it?
No, it is.
Your
It's
doctorate.
a 3-year deal, and it takes a lot of time, patience, and understanding from those around you, which I'm fortunate to have had in bag loads. So, from my side of things, just incredibly blessed to be done with it, at least.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you? You may be afraid to say this because I know you're coaching right now, but is there like a long-term kind of thing that you're hoping
Just
with the
career-wise?
doctorate? Yeah, as far as the doctorate goes.
As far as the doctorate goes, I'll be honest with you, not yet. For me, the whole reason that I decided to, sort of attempt the doctorate was a single conversation that I had with my brother before he passed away a couple of years ago. And it was really on the back end of my master's sort of journey.
Yeah.
And I was texting with him and said, dude, I'm thinking about PhD. And he's like, man, that would be crazy. You'd be the first doctor in the family. And then a couple of days later, COVID happened and, he ended up passing away. And for me, after that, incredibly heartbreaking period, it was, well, what am I going to do next? I'm in the United States as a foreigner on a work visa, so, my options were quite limited at the time. And in my mind, it sort of just made sense to at least attempt PhD and try to upskill myself in a time where I was kind of not able to move around quite freely. Like applying for a new job didn't make sense because it would reset my permanent residency timeline. So for me, I wanted to make the most of my time here at CU and decided, you know what, deal with myself. If I'm passing the classes, I'll carry on. And it just so happened that after every class I was passing and doing quite well to where I had to stay on and finish. So
Dude, that's awesome.
Ended up getting all the way through, which, like I said, I'm very blessed.
I feel like I had a mentor tell me one time about the doctorate journey that it really is about this like consistent endurance.
Yes.
That most people can probably handle it, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah. You really start to learn a lot about yourself. Perseverance is probably the word that I'd use there.
Yeah.
And even for me, there were 2, maybe 3 distinct moments during this 3-year journey where I felt like, okay, I'm done. And 2 of the 3 were really because I traveled home.
Right.
And was able to just, be a tourist back home, see the family, get love from everyone, eat all the good food.
Yeah.
And then when I got back, I was like, you know what? I can afford to do that every single year if I'm not doing PhD.
Right.
So why not? And then, after conversations with those around me, they helped bring me back to sort of where I needed to be in terms of refocusing and making sure the energy and mindset were all aligned, still moving in the direction of trying to finish it. So perseverance is definitely something you need in bag loads if you're going to work through a PhD.
Yeah, my wife, so I've been working on one and should be wrapping up in this next year or so, but my wife has definitely been, because with kids and everything, there have been so many moments where I'm like, because it's really, I think it's hard for a doctor to pay off financially in some ways. There's a lot of tests of endurance in there.
No, big time. And I think there's a lot of opportunities on the backside of it. And, you've just asked what are the plans. And for me, right now in this moment, the only plan is to invest in the coaching role and trying to make sure that I continue Adam's legacy with the team. And then after the season's finished up, like I said to you a little earlier on, I'm traveling back home for Christmas and really want to use that time to decompress and start to figure out, okay, what's next? Like I said, a lot of blessings have come my way this summer. Finishing the PhD was one.
Yeah.
I think June 16th, I defended successfully.
Wow.
June 17th, it's been a 5-6 year process. I got approved for my permanent residency and my green card.
Congratulations, man. Yeah.
So again, God's timing and that blessing that came out of this period of waiting for me. I've kind of felt, over the past couple of years, and I don't mean this in an overly negative way, but I've been walking through the desert.
Yeah.
Just having to be patient, having to bide my time. Fortunately, I've been able to keep myself busy with PhD and coaching and investing in the guys that I work with. But, one of the big goals in terms of coming back to the United States in 2019 was working towards, a green card, permanent residency, all that kind of stuff for my future. So, to have been praying about that for years and reaching out to the lawyers and then, taking the PhD as an extra route to work towards permanent residency because it allows you to change your status in terms of the processing. And then literally the day after I finished up, approved, got an email, hey, congratulations. And I mean, it's just, again, God's timing is immense. And in that moment for me, full transparency, I just broke down and started crying and fell into a moment of prayer where it was kind of like joyous crying. Where I'm just so thankful in that moment. I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it, to be honest. Because for me, it was this whole coming together of, all this patience and all this waiting for two monumental sort of life events.
It's huge.
That just, sort of happened when they were required to happen, in the Lord's timing, where I'm like, okay, I can try and finish the degree early, which I did. And even then it was like, okay, well, now that I've got the degree sorted, let me reach out to the lawyers, and it was done.
Wow.
So again, just so blessed. And then, in keeping with this topic of being blessed, obviously within that next week, Adam got the role as athletic director, and I got the role of interim head coach. So again, without even trying, I've been blessed and elevated into a new role, which for me has been quite a testing period. But quite exciting too.
Oh man, you're gonna be already a great coach. It's just really fun. But
we'll see about that.
Yeah. Well, man, one thing we always, and you've really kind of touched on it a lot already, kind of woven it in there, but would love to hear just a little bit of your faith story, and if part of that kind of includes how you got to see you. Obviously, soccer is a massive role of how you got here to see you, but yeah, whatever you'd want to kind of share in that. We always, when we get people around the table, we'd love just to hear just their story of faith. And man, it's wild. Again, you're talking about God's timing. It's really wild how big God is and the way He works in people's lives, and that's one of the things we always love to hear. So,
100%.
yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, for me, I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa. When I was born, that was still apartheid. So, for those people that don't know what that is, it's the racial segregation within our country that still existed at that time. So, whenever I was about 3-4 years old, 1995, around then, that's when Nelson Mandela was then named or voted in as president of South Africa, and apartheid was ended. So essentially this racial segregation and this period of a lot of frustration and tension was over. But then obviously a new sort of period of tension started to evolve as now schools were integrated. Same thing that happened during, in the United States during the civil rights movement, I think it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can imagine a lot of tension in our country at that time. With that being from an Asian descent, my parents were made to go to the black-only schools and ride the black-only buses.
Wow.
And then when life changed so drastically, and now I'm alive and going to school, getting invited to these little children's parties, unbeknownst to me, I don't realize I'm the only Asian kid that's in the room.
Yeah.
And in those situations, again, retrospect, didn't quite realize that in a lot of those situations, my parents, it's their first time being in a white person's house.
Wow.
Or a white person having an Asian family in their home. So, a lot of frustration in the early years of my childhood. Not necessarily that I was aware of it, but that was, in the environment that we were around.
Yeah.
My dad is one of the main reasons that I ended up finding the Lord. He had his own walk with Christ, ended up, wandering for a little bit and then found his way back. And in that moment, he encouraged us to at least start, going to Sunday school whenever he was going to church, and at least start to hear some of the different biblical stories that are taught. And I was probably the first one to put my hand up out of myself and my siblings, being the oldest, and they sort of just followed suit as younger siblings normally would. And that's the sort of early introduction into our life with the church. At about 13 years old, we were participating in a Chinese Easter tournament. So to put that in perspective,
Easter tournament.
Yeah, every single year.
Yeah.
The Chinese community in South Africa, which is quite large but spread around all over the country, they gather together for an organized tournament, if you picture like a national tournament in athletics here in the United States for different sporting events. But it's all community driven. So
that's really cool.
Different regions from around the country will put together teams, and for men's soccer, men's and women's basketball is actually a super popular one. Golf.
Wow.
So we'll go and all get together on one sort of university campus because that's what they'll normally rent out and use those facilities and have everyone staying in and around the same area.
That's really cool.
And again, it's just to foster, community engagement with the Chinese community, in the country. So I remember distinctly at about 13 years old, still living in Johannesburg. This is an Easter tournament, and even there is an aspect where faith is brought in, and people are invited, into a service to be able to just hear the word of Jesus and start to ponder about the message that's being spoken about now during that time. And obviously, Easter is an amazing time, right? Biblically, the death and resurrection of Jesus is a massive, monumental, historical event. So. During that time at 13, I'm hearing about, the life of Jesus and his death and resurrection. And again, in that moment, just getting goosebumps. And one thing for me that has been consistent through my life is when I'm in the right place at the right time and I know the Lord's meant for me to be there, I sort of have a veil that drops on me like a blanket.
Oh, wow.
I just know, like, it's almost like a hug and embrace.
Yeah.
And I sort of know I'm where I'm meant to be in that moment. And that's been consistent through different periods and different big decisions that I've made. And I know, okay, you know what? I've made the right choice here. I've listened correctly and been attuned and ended up where I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
So for me, in that moment, we were asked, if you want to, devote your life to Jesus, put your hand up. We'll grab you aside and have someone chat with you. And without even realizing it, my hand was
You
up.
just went,
My dad was surprised. He looked out at me. He was like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
And that was then, my first big jump towards, following the Lord and placing my life in his hands. And since then, I don't really get too worked up about any major decisions because I just leave it, for him to handle and trust that, whatever he has in store for me, will work out.
Yeah.
And that, again, has been consistent through any of the big moments in my life coming to the States. You asked, how did I get here? Again, football, soccer is the reason that I ended up in the States.
And you're good, man. Yeah, I've seen it.
I used to be. I'm old now, man. I'm hungry
whatever.
kids up. But hopefully my guys will be good. So during that time of my life, finishing school, and again, football in South Africa has its issues. A lot of countries do, but a lot of the issues back home have to do with racial color.
Yeah.
So my coach at the time was like, "Look, you've got talent, kid, but you're the wrong color to be playing in this."
No way.
Straight
Really?
up. Yeah, he's like, "You're too light." I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I was like, "Okay, well, fair enough. Like, that's your opinion." He's like, "If I were you, I would look into options in the United States." And this is now back in 2008, 2009 for me to start in 2010.
Yeah.
And he's like, the States is where you want to be. You can go get a solid education, that you have as a backup plan in case things don't work out football-wise. And then on top of that, you're going to be playing competitive football. So myself and my dad decided, okay, let's look into that. Came over for a showcase, and actually the school I was meant to go to was Lindsay Wilson down the road.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Not
I was
Lindsay.
meant to be a Blue Raider, yeah. So I had all intentions in going there, and right up until that period where we're supposed to be selecting, classes to have it put onto our documentation to get the visa and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I reached out to the coach and just said, "Hey, do you guys have exercise science and sports medicine? That's what I want to study."
Yeah.
And he was just straight up transparent and quite honest about it. And he's like, "Look, we don't. If that's something you want to study, unfortunately, we don't have that as an option here. These are what we'd recommend. But there's a school about 25 minutes down the road that I know offers that program, and I know the coach personally."
Wow, that was really big of him.
Yeah, really big of him. So, he then reached out to Adam Preston, who was the head coach at the time, and said, "Look, he has a kid that's wanting to study this degree pathway that plays soccer if you want him."
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that's essentially how I ended up here. Very minimal communication with Adam. So I guess looking back and now knowing, what it is like from the coach's perspective, I guess I was just, viewed as a reserve kid, like an add-on, an extra. And then ended up getting here and, in my own way, I think making an impact on the team, which was a special time in my life and a special group of people to work with. So, yeah, that's essentially how I landed up in Campbellsville, and football was a massive driver in terms of how I ended up here. And then on the backside, the degree, which again, talking about the Lord's timing and him directing me and trying to be attuned to what he's asking of me. That degree then was the big differentiator in me getting hired on full time as an assistant coach in 2020. Again, the U.S. government wants to make sure that what you're working in is backed up with a degree that aligns. I'm not a business major trying to get a sports coaching job.
Sure.
So again, me then forcing the issue of wanting to study that degree pathway allowed me to then stay on, which is then obviously progressed over time into me being the head coach now, which is
It's
insane.
crazy, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have undergrad, a master's, a doctorate, head
yeah,
coach.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
insane, isn't it?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I didn't picture myself being here.
Mm.
Especially, like, the PhD process was something that all my family were aware of, but no one, and especially if you've worked with anyone that's done a PhD, no one really knows or understands what you're going through except the people
No.
right within that tight
Yeah.
circle. And with me being, away from all of my family in a country by
Kind of
myself,
alone in that a little bit.
kind of alone in
Yeah.
that regard. So, they really don't understand, how
Mm.
much work and effort you're putting into it, and a lot of questions like why,
Why do
especially
that?
when I give them the reason that I've mentioned now, like I
Right.
had a conversation with Troy, and that's what I want to do, and
Mm.
I want to see it out. But yeah, like I said, this journey itself has just been filled and littered with blessings along the way. With Adam, being who he is and the leader that he is, which is evidenced by the fact that he's athletic director now.
Yeah.
I've been able to learn and be mentored by someone that I trust and believe in, and hopefully that's prepared me now to, continue building that into the team to make sure that we're moving them in the right direction.
Oh, you're an obvious leader, man. Yeah, it's
Thank
very
you.
clear. That for me, when I really got, I'd seen your name and seen you even as a student over the years,
Yeah.
but and then as an assistant coach. But when we got to travel to Alaska, man, just to see your heart and hear your story, and yeah, to see your investment in people, just really, really cool. And it's very clear the Lord has been directing you in a lot of ways, and you've already been a leader in so many ways, and so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm pumped that you're there. But if you were to kind of like narrow down, this is a really tough question, so it's really bad to ask. But like if you were to look at like a thread kind of in your faith story, something that maybe has kind of come up several times with you and the Lord, is there something like that? I mean, I had a couple ideas in my brain when you were talking like timing and those moments of real affirmation you were talking about with the veil. But has there been a challenge or a thread of something that you've seen God really working throughout your life?
I think the challenge for me is always just to be patient. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
this period now has been incredibly testing for me because, like you said, you saw me as a student athlete on campus, and I'm
Yeah.
sure if you saw me, I was running around doing something, right?
Busy guy.
I'm
Yeah.
a busy guy, and I like
Yeah.
to keep myself busy. And like you said, I'm personable. I like to be around people, so
Mm.
it's always trying to find ways to get involved with one group and then another, and trying to be
Yeah.
in the mix of everything that's going on. So within this role as a coach, being back in Campbellsville on campus, it's been quite lonely at times because the investment with the team, it can only be one-sided, right?
Right,
It's that
yeah.
coach-athlete dynamic,
Yeah.
and then within the people that I know around here, everyone else is on a busy schedule because they're either coaches or an ADE or working in some capacity
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
different to my own schedule. So being patient was definitely a thread that I've had to just constantly bring up and understand and acknowledge that it's a test for me, right?
Yeah.
And that better things will come. I think, in terms of, thread from Scripture, Galatians 3:26, for in Christ Jesus you are all children of God through faith. That's probably one of my sort of tabletop nuggets, if you will.
Yeah.
Because for me, and again, that's tied into the dissertation that I've just finished up writing. Your strength of faith has a huge impact on who you are as an individual, right? And your sense of security, your sense of belonging, and that could be anywhere, right? If you like, for me, in my example, I'm in a foreign country, in a foreign place, with people that I've only met during the time that I've been
Yeah.
here. No,
Crazy, weird Americans.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, that patience is also then tied to being faithful. If I'm being faithful and I'm trying to be patient, I think I'm at least listening to the message that the Lord's trying to speak into my life. But I think that is a big aspect of it. And being faithful might mean waiting. It might mean taking action. There's going to be different objectives, different instructions that you get spoken in your life and led into by the Lord. And for me, as long as you're faithful through whatever those activities and objectives are, I think you're better off for it, and you'll come out the other side having at least learned something, and hopefully having had value added to your life, because that's something I'm a big believer in. As people, we're never fully complete products. We're always capable of learning and growing.
Yeah.
And something I talk about with my guys is having a growth mindset. There's a book by Dr. Carol Dweck called Mindset.
Okay.
And it talks about two different mindsets, a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is the type of individual that believes that your innate talents or abilities are the reason that you're able to excel at something.
Right,
So from an
gotcha.
athletic point of view, your natural gifts.
It's who you are. It's
That's
what
who
you are.
You know what I mean? If you're supposed to be the top-notch stud on the team, you are, because that's your God-given talent, right?
Yeah.
And if you fail, it's because
You were in the wrong role.
you're in the wrong
Yeah.
role, or it's
Mhm.
someone else's fault.
Yeah, yeah.
The coach didn't utilize me in the position that I needed to play in to
Yeah.
maximize my potential.
I'm sure you'll get that a little bit.
Right? Where the growth mindset
Yeah.
is the complete opposite of that. So in the growth mindset, you start to believe that any skill is learnable, right? And that any challenge or mistake is just a new opportunity to learn and grow. And that's something I'm now trying to get into the minds of my athletes, because the one example that I've used with them, and it's quite basic, is how many of you guys know how to drive? Look for hands in the room. Everyone does, right? They're all over 18.
Yeah.
How many of you guys knew how to drive before the first time you sat behind a wheel? Obviously, no one does,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You've never learned that skill. In that moment, I said, how many of you guys were nervous? Myself included, hands up. Super, super nervous because it's something new, right? But as soon as you put it into gear and go at 5 miles, an hour around a parking lot that's empty, and start to get a little bit more confident and understand, how the steering wheel moves and how it makes the car react, you start to get more confident and grow in that skill till eventually you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
To us today, you get in a car, you just go, right?
Yeah.
And that could be the same with anything. One of my guys may not be the best dribbler on the team, but if he goes and applies time and effort into dribbling drills, he's going to get better at it, right? So
No doubt.
that's just the mindset that I'm trying to instill within the guys, because, and this is something that I sort of preach to them all the time, is a big aspect of our job as coaches is to win games, right? That's why we're here.
Sure.
It's a big driving portion of
Massive.
what we want to do and what we want to achieve. But the other side of that is helping to grow the athletes that we work with into young people that we're proud to send out into the world after we're done working with them. And that's a big aspect of this job that we take quite seriously, and I do, my coaching staff does. I want to know that wherever you end up, we've prepared you to succeed. And not just prepared you for success, but prepared you to be a good human being.
Right, yeah.
And, that's something that's so important for me, and the culture that we're trying to build and continue to just add layers on within this program. And I think Adam's done a phenomenal job, doing that over the past 23 years. So big shoes to fill. But I'm hoping to continue to do the same good work and just take it to another level if I can.
Yeah, Camsell's blessed to have you, man, for sure. I'm pumped.
It.
So I know a little bit of your story and kind of bring this home a little bit, but man, you've walked through some pretty crazy stuff, and that word faithful is a big part, it sounds like. And so what, if you were to kind of sum up, what has persuaded you to remain faithful in and through all that? Whether, you mentioned, the loss of your brother, to the challenge of being in another country, to the waiting game of, man, I'm waiting this out, trying to figure out the doctorate and, all the citizenship stuff, all those kind of things. Man, that really is a story of your testimony. It sounds like that faithfulness, and so many spaces and places to not be faithful.
Right.
And that really is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for believers and for young adults, especially the things that, man, are just there that we just want to give up. We're just kind of done. Maybe it's from temptation to the unfairness of the world and the brokenness of whatever it is. What have you found has been, man, this is the thing that's always pulled you back in to remain faithful?
So for me, one, I'm an optimist. The grass is green, the glass is half full. That's my mindset and just my life philosophy, if you will. But outside of that, obviously, there's been some testing periods, and having a close circle of people around you that you can trust, that believe in you, that you believe in, is so important. I think something that I've heard Adam say over the years is you're a product of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it's really trying to make sure that those people are extremely well vetted and selected with care. So you don't want to just have people around you who are taking away from your life, or not adding value in different ways.
That's huge.
So for me, it's really trying to find those people that in some capacity they can pour into your life in a positive way, and in other capacities I can pour into their lives, and it's this mutual, shared relationship where we're all growing together.
Man, that's good.
And I think that's important. And then also, just like I said, I'm an optimist, but keeping track of the blessings in my life. So again, like I said, there's been so many different milestones and markers where, I could have just hung my head up and said, okay, I'm done. I'm over this. I'm going to find something else. And really just keeping track of the different places and where I've seen the Lord's hand and grace, felt his guidance.
That's huge.
His security, something which I won't touch on too much now, but we've had home invasions in our home in South Africa where people have broken into our house, to try and rob us, and we've been involved in, physical fights. And even then, as hectic as that moment was, my family was safe at the end of it, and that's the blessing. Again, being an optimist, I'm not looking at, trying to assign blame and being like, you know what, Lord, you could have prevented this.
That's huge.
I'm looking
That's
at
big.
it from the other side of it where, you know what, thank you, Lord, for bringing us through this together. And again, I think, trying to find ways to reframe your mind, again, talking about that fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. If you're in a fixed mindset and you go through a situation like that, I think you turn away from Christianity altogether. If you've experienced something that's that terrible, that crazy, where your life is literally at stake, it's quite a terrifying situation to be in. So for me, having that growth mindset and trying to find the positive takeaways of the fact that we all survived, we're all okay, is the way that I choose to at least move forwards and
that's huge.
Make sure that my outlook remains positive.
Wow. Preach it. Man, you're such a blessing. All right. We try to keep these kind of short just so people can marinate on stuff. So if you were to give a quick table tip for somebody to marinate on today, what would you leave us with?
A table tip is just be diligent, man. And that's in every aspect of your life. If you're finding places that you struggle, find support. And when I say being diligent, everything doesn't have to be a big step. So the one thing that I'm saying to my guys now is everything needs to be baby steps. Add a layer upon layer every single day. So, find small victories if you can. Something that was kind of weird, I guess, that I did throughout my PhD journey is at one point in my life, and I still would like to, is I wanted to learn a different language. Being in the States, Spanish was one of those, so I used Duolingo to just start doing little lessons and stuff. Haven't learned, very much Spanish at all. But what I ended up using Duolingo for was every single morning I would go on and do, as boring as it sounds, the exact same little activity just to get complete, and it then adds like a day to your streak. So for me, it was like, let me start my day off getting one little victory. And I know there's a talk out there where it's like, make your bed in the morning from some military veteran, that sort of a mindset. So for me, it was like, find the one place where I can get a win, and it's something
and
basic, do it.
Yep.
And then find the next one to take another baby step forwards through whatever it is you're working with. And, in your spiritual life, again, if you're struggling with something, find that little moment for a little bit of prayer, and then again, try to expand on that, try to find someone to talk to for a little bit more guidance. And I think finding ways to lean on others in moments of where you're tested or through trial is just so important. And I think, if you're diligent about working through those in different ways, that you're at least going to be able to come out the other side a little bit better for it, and at least hopefully having learned something, which I think is important.
Man, such good. And we could talk forever about all the things you're saying, man. But thank you so much for being here. I encourage everybody to get out and support the men's team and playing tonight.
Yes, we
man, thanks so much for being here.
Great stuff, man. Thank you very much for your time, and happy to be here again if you ever want to have me.
I will. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll bug you again.
Awesome.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Trent.
Yep.
This podcast is brought to you by Campus Ministry at Campbellsville University, where faith, testimony, and dialogue come together. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you at the table next time.